Hey, have you ever had a voice inside of your head that criticizes or self-sabotages you? And how would you like to get in the driver's seat of that? Hi, my name is Celinne WTF, and I am a story strategist and mindset coach. And today, I'm going to be talking to you about something that affects most of us, I'd say, which is what to do when your inner critic tries to sabotage you. So stick around. I have 4 tips for you how you can get back into the driver's seat and allow yourself to release that from your life. And for those of you who stick around to the end, I actually have an opportunity for you to delve deeper into this type of work and connect with me. All right, let's get started. I was recently teaching a group coaching session around the ways that we self-sabotage ourselves. The voices in our head that always tells us that we're not enough, that we can't do something, that we're not capable. And one of my students asked me, what is the difference between ego and shadow? And here is what I answer them. Your ego is everything that comes after I am. It's not good or bad. So a lot of people think that having an ego is a bad thing, but it's in and of itself neutral. What matters is how you manifest it into the physical world and whether you keep it in check or not. So a lot of your ego is actually conscious, and there's some parts of it lurking in your subconscious, but you do have the power to construct it as you wish. And as for the subconscious part, well, it shows up as different voices in your head, which I talk about in my previous video. The shadow are the parts of you that need to be healed and brought into yourself, and that is very unconscious. So according to psychologist Carl Jung, the shadow are the parts of you that you repress or hide from yourself because you don't like them. So you push them deep, deep, deep down into your unconscious, mostly during childhood. So the shadow looks like aggressive or selfish impulses. It looks like entitlement, playing the victim. It looks like self-deprecation, or the self-critic that is consistently popping up and telling you what you cannot do and sabotaging you from what you really, really want. And by the way, before you start hating on shadows, there's nothing wrong with having a shadow. We all have them. And if you don't have a shadow, it's because you're standing in darkness. So rejection of your shadow is the problem. It's a part of you that wants to be integrated, and that's why it acts up. When it comes to your shadow, you're either going to use it or it's going to use you. Many, many issues can arise from your life when you keep your shadow hidden and locked away, including addictions, social anxiety, obsessive disorder, depression, and the list goes on. Shadow work is about deep and radical self-acceptance of you, all parts of you, and to get crystal clear on the root of what's causing your self-sabotaging behaviors so they can stop controlling you on an unconscious level. So as Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life and you will call it fate. So shadow work is how you integrate the aspects of your unconscious psyche with your conscious experience, put it together, and allow the positive aspects of your shadow to express themselves. So what does that look like? Well, that leads me to the next point, which is what are some tools for dealing with that inner critic and resolving your shadow? The first step, easy, awareness. Become aware that you are the observer and you are not your thoughts. So I'm going to repeat that. You are not your thoughts. So step 1 is simply recognizing that there's parts of you that are self-sabotaging you. Just recognizing that they're there. That's it. So the second step is observation. Watch the self-sabotaging behavior. When it comes up, why it comes up, what is triggering it, and get familiar with your shadow and the way that it's affecting your life and the life of others. Now, the key here is to observe without judgment. So this isn't about looking at your behaviors and being like, oh my God, why is that happening? I hate this. Oh my God, grr. No. We just want to observe like a scientist without any judgment, detached, being like, interesting. This is essentially when the behavior comes up, and this is what happens as a result of it. Easy. So the third part, that's the tricky part. That's where most people start to face a challenge, which is to embrace it. This is self-acceptance and resolution. So this is the part where you want to start becoming loving and kind to the parts of yourself that you previously rejected, and allow yourself to have compassion for yourself as well as for others. So what does that look like? It can look like many self-soothing practices, such as talking to yourself lovingly as you would to a child. It looks like holding yourself, being there with yourself, sitting with your feelings instead of running away or escaping from them. It can look like, for me, it looks like just breathing through certain emotions that are coming up for me, certain sadness, like allowing that rejection to be there. So that is the part that feels challenging for people, because our instinct is to reject the things that we don't like. That self-sabotaging, that inner critic is to be like, oh my God, get away from me. But what you actually want to do is bring that critic, that shadow in closer and give it acceptance, give it love, allow it to integrate into you. And here is step number 4, the last step, which is befriend it. Develop a positive relationship with that part of yourself, and think about the positive intention of why you're engaging in that behavior. It's likely because you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to help yourself. You're not purposely trying to self-sabotage or hurt yourself or others. So actually create a positive relationship, make friends with that part of you and talk to it. You know, sometimes when my inner critic pops up, I talk to my inner critic and I say, thank you, inner critic, for being there and trying to protect me. What is it that you need from me right now? And is it possible that you and I can come back to my breath, can come back into my body, sit with this and breathe through this? So that is so much different than saying, oh, screw you, like stop criticizing me, you know, stop being here, stop messing up my life. It's a completely different energy, because rather than pushing that part of you away, which by the way is a part of you, so you are self-rejecting by doing that, you're bringing that part closer and working with it and saying, what do you need? How can I help you? And how can we work together to get me towards my goals? So here's a personal example of what that would look like. For me, a big shadow is feeling like I'm being taken advantage of. So I get super triggered when a guy plays a cat and mouse game with me, or when a team member misses a deadline, or if a client doesn't follow the rules in the contract. And when things like that, small things like that happened, I just get triggered. So step number 1 is to just become aware that I have this trigger, and also recognize that I don't have to feel that way. So through observation, I actually learned what that feels like in my body. It's this red hot ball of anxiety in my chest. So that is my physical trigger that when it pops up, I now know to pause, do not react as I used to do, to sit with it and not jump to conclusions, because that would only play into my old patterns, and instead to replace the jumping to conclusion with asking myself smart questions and calming myself down. Questions such as, why do I feel angry right now? What about this is frustrating me? Is this actually reality, or is this me jumping into conclusions? What about this is real? What about this is my imagination? What was that person's intentions when they acted in this way that upsets me? Because it's also about looking at what other people are thinking and why they're thinking. What is their positive intention? Basically, what was the positive reason why they acted that way? Maybe they were trying to protect themselves. Maybe they were trying to do something positive, because let's face it, nobody's waking up in the morning being like, I want to be the shittiest person I can be today. Like, they're not doing this to you on purpose. And so being able to take a step back and reflect on that helps me get back to my center and observe, wow, when this thing happens, it really triggers my shadow. Let me just watch it, and now all of a sudden I can calm down and think clearly again, because the old me that had my shadow completely in the unconscious would have freaked out and like maybe yelled at someone, exploded in their face, and that's not how I want to behave. It doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve others. So that's how I observe. So I embrace my shadow by holding myself. by practicing self-soothing techniques such as sitting down and just breathing, connecting to my breath, calming myself down physiologically. And one of the things that I really love to do actually is to talk to my shadow, like to talk to my shadow out loud. So I will give my shadow a voice. I would let my shadow, literally I'll stand in my room and talk out loud and say whatever I need to say as my shadow, however immature or rude or angry or whatever it sounds. I allow my shadow to just talk. And then once my shadow says what my shadow needs to say, I will step into a different part of my room and I will address my shadow as the mature adult that I am and talk to my shadow and be like, hey, I know you're feeling this way. Here's some solutions. Here's some things that we can do. So that allows me to really think clearly because I got all the crap out of my system. And so then I'm able to have a conversation, stepping back and forth, shadow, mature adult, and be like, hey, what do you need right now? How can we work together to solve past this and calm you down? And always, I find some sort of resolution. And what usually comes out is that the things that my shadow needed are pretty valid, which is I need my boundaries to be respected. I need to feel that I'm being heard. I need to feel that I'm not being abandoned. And those are completely healthy boundaries to have. And lastly, I befriend it because now I know I have a trigger that's negatively affecting me, but it's coming from a good place. It's showing me how much I care about people, how much I show up for people, and how much love I have inside my heart. And that's why I got triggered to begin with. So befriending it and appreciating myself for being that person. And so when I develop this relationship with this trigger and the positive intention behind the trigger, what that allows me to do is to turn to the people who triggered me and be able to non-violently communicate what my boundaries are and approach the conversation from a place of, hey, how can we do better in the future so that this doesn't happen again? And that is coming from a completely different place than if I just, boom, like exploded on them and yelled at them in the moment as my shadow wanted me to do. So you notice that there's a huge difference. And so by following these steps, I'm able to communicate what I want, and pretty often I am able to get what I want and help other people get what they want. So everyone wins. Shadow is loved and embraced, nobody gets yelled at, and I walk away feeling good. What I'm trying to say is your inner critic is protecting you. So whenever you get frustrated with yourself, remember that. It wants the best for you, even though it has some funny ways of showing it sometimes. So work with your inner critic, not against your inner critic. Allow it to guide you without self-sabotage, and you will see that you will develop so much more love for yourself as well as confidence in learning to deal with tough situations anytime they pop up. If you're feeling called to learn more about how to crush limiting beliefs, limiting patterns, and turn them around to consistently create empowering stories for yourself, as well as stories that you can share with your audience, this is something that we go deep into my group coaching program, which opens every couple of months. So if this is something you're interested in, I highly recommend that you DM me and you book a call with me so we can talk about some options for you to continue doing this sort of work so that you can get on the path to creating a powerful brand from the inside out. Because as you have seen so far in my videos, when it comes to creating your brand and mastering your story, it really starts with what's going on in here and how you're allowing these beliefs to affect you and run your life. So I want to hear from you. What is one shadow that really needs healing from you right now? Drop it in the comments and you'll have already done step number 1, which is awareness. Plus we can start a conversation around this. Let's get vulnerable. Let's help each other resolve this. And depending on what you guys say, I might be making another follow-up video to address the most common shadows. So thank you so much for watching today. I love you guys. Any comments, any questions, feel free to DM me or put them in the comments, and see you very soon. Mwah. Let the fun begin. I'm sorry, I'm not performing right now. I am not at my peak. no idea what I'm saying. Oh. These pants are riding up. Oh, mamma mia. There. Yes, that was good.